Three, two, one.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
All right, welcome to Grok Talk. Back after a week off. I am here with Mike Rogers. Happy to be here. Don't forget, if you want to listen to past programs, and I got to squeeze this in because I always forget, Spreaker, iHeart, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, and of course at GraniteGrok.com. You can also follow the audio version on my YouTube page and my Google Plus page, and we'd like you to like us on Facebook at Granite Grok and follow us on Twitter. But we're not going to screw around. We have guests to talk to, and one of them is this gentleman, Greg Moore. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I am fantastic, Steve. Mike, good to hear from you. Don't know how you can take a week off this time of year in the middle of a busy season, but, you know, we're glad you're back hitting the ground running quickly.
Well, I had to go to my son's graduation.
Oh, well, I guess that's a good reason.
They had it on a Saturday. I had to go.
Yeah, my grandson's graduation was the week before, so and it was on a Friday night. And these kind gentlemen were in the studio, even Skip, and so I just phoned it in from Providence.
Providence.
Well, you know, even here we can phone it in every once in a while.
Yeah, actually next week is July 4th, so unless we do some special Johnny-on-the-spot interviews with candidates.
Actually, next week is the 27th.
Next week. Sorry, next week.
We will be here on the 27th.
Sorry,
2 weeks on the 4th. We will not be here, but then we will be at the CNHT picnic on the 11th, and we'll go back to our regular studio program after that. But we want to talk about the budget,
right? Don't we? We do.
Absolutely. You know, first of all, I think it's important to point out that the budget that's coming out of the Committee of Conference and is going to the House and the Senate on Wednesday is a good budget. I mean, I think that. Personally, I like the House budget a little more because it spent less money, but the economy looks like it's getting a little better. So there was some opportunities to raise some of the revenue figures. But one of the important things they did when they got that new revenue in was to provide some tax relief to businesses across New Hampshire. Now, we've been at this for over a year and a half, talking about how New Hampshire has some of the highest business tax rates in the country. And when you're third highest in terms of the business tax rate and second highest in terms of per capita business taxes, that means you're in an uncompetitive situation in which you're basically telling your businesses, go to Massachusetts. It's cheaper to do business in Massachusetts. And when would that ever make sense? When do you say, oh, it's cheaper to do business in Massachusetts than in New Hampshire? But in reality, that's where we're at. And yet, Governor Hassan came out and said she's going to veto this budget. She is going to step up and veto this budget because it provides tax relief to our employers. So because we're providing tax relief from some of the most uncompetitively high business taxes in the country, Governor Hassan has said, I'm going to step in and I'm going to veto this budget. And I got to tell you what, it's incredibly irresponsible of the governor. But I'll say one thing that seems clear is that I think the entire world had a sort of a sea change when she announced it, because it seems to me that she's no longer interested in the idea of running for U.S. Senate, because this is absolutely the wrong decision if you're planning on running for Senate, because if you look at the past history of governors vetoing budgets, whether it's Governor Benson in 2003, back in 1981 with Governor Gallen, or 1977 with Mel Thompson, there's one thing that was in common in all three of those folks. They all lost their next election. So Governor Hassan is certainly not doing a politically smart thing, but it's abundantly clear that she is playing to her left base. It is saying, look, we want to make this a big issue about how corporations are awful and evil, and these people who are creating jobs are terrible, and we need to attack them. And that's right the mantra that she's following into, and she's saying, I'm going to veto this budget because it provides tax relief to businesses.
All right, so how much was the total previous budget, and how much is the new budget, and what's the percentage of the increase?
So it's important to look at the budget to budget. the last budget to this budget, and last budget was a $10.7 billion budget. This budget is an $11.2 billion budget. That's a 5% increase overall. So it's important to keep in mind of that $550 million in additional spending, $460 million of it comes from the Obamacare Medicaid expansion that was not included in the last budget and that is included for the first 18 months in this budget. Now, it's important to remember that this budget did not extend or make permanent the Obamacare Medicaid expansion, and that's an important progress, an important reason why conservatives should be supportive of this budget, which is that, like I said, only about, net of the Obamacare Medicaid expansion, the actual increase in the budget is only about $90 million over 2 years.
Wow. $90 million. Let me just...
Now, granted, I'll take $90 million if someone's giving it away, right? But
what I mean when I say $90 million is I just find it interesting that it sounds like a lot, but in a, and it kind of is, but I mean, we're talking about $10, $11 billion. And I think that's why it is a good budget, because it's not that much. I mean, obviously things cost more. If you've gone to the grocery store, you know things cost more. Everything costs more. So there's going to be some growth in the budget, because we know they're not going to do the really, really hard work of going in there and scraping out the crud and getting rid of some of the inefficiency, because that's just not this legislature. But
well, it's important to realize that net of Medicaid expansion, the House budget was actually a negative budget. Spending actually went down budget to budget if you take out the Medicaid expansion, because that was not included in the last budget and is included in this one. So that's why I like the House budget more. But still, as you pointed out, all things being equal, looking at the entire budget to budget, once you get past that Medicaid expansion, which of course, that's going to be a big fight next year. $90 million in an $11.2 billion budget is not an enormous increase in spending.
No, it's not, but it's just the general lack of restraint that we've come to expect. Some of our state legislatures suggested that maybe some outside influence, maybe a PAC associated with a former Liberal mayor, might be involved in this. Is that the case?
I think that has more to do with Senate Bill 116 than necessarily this budget per se. I think this more has to do with the overarching strategy of the left for 2016, which is to demonize corporations and demonize corporate America. In other words, to demonize the job creators across America, and to attack them and basically use every opportunity to make them the boogeyman. Because frankly, if this election becomes a referendum on Barack Obama, the left is toast. They know that. So they have to find some person to get their folks angry and mad at to energize them to get out. And when this budget included tax relief for our businesses, which frankly are struggling to stay in New Hampshire, then that was the opportunity, I think, for the left to say, that's the thing we have to go after. That's the thing we have to attack. And frankly, at her press conference announcing her veto threat, Governor Hassan mentioned it multiple times, the tax relief that's being offered in this budget.
So there's a Twitter campaign going on with regard to the threat of Governor Hassan called Governor Shutdown. And I was going to write a big piece about that last night, and then I'm thinking to myself, you know what, I don't know what the budget number is. I got to wait till tomorrow when I talk to Greg.
Well, as I say, based on some comments by one of our state legislators who occasionally contributes, I put together a little photo montage, which you can now see just below our live stream.
Oh, that.
Yes.
The Miss Piggy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Being tempted by some donuts with dollar sprinkles and a little devil on her shoulder that looks suspiciously like a former mayor.
So here's a question for you. Politically speaking, this is something that just seems to be the way. I know you said that for somebody wanting to run for the Senate who's a governor, threatening to veto the budget is a bad idea. But given the dynamics of the left, do you really think it's going to hurt her?
Not among them, but understand that the reason why, whether it was Governor Hassan or Governor Lynch beforehand, the reason why they've had the ability to be popular is because they would often talk about doing things in a bipartisan fashion. And they talk about Republicans, Democrats, and independents working together and reaching across the aisle. You and that's not really because they actually expect Republicans to vote for them. It's to get independents to think that they're these high-minded individuals who are worried about good policy. And unfortunately, this action right here blows a hole in that rhetoric and basically turns Governor Hassan into basically what amounts to a partisan leader for the Democratic Party, and that actually is more damaging than it looks. Beyond just the fact that in Washington they talk about blame on government shutdowns, who's going to get the blame? In reality, what that means is who gets hurt more, because everybody gets hurt when government stops working. There are certain things we expect, which is, hey, listen, I'm paying these taxes. I expect somebody is going to be, there to turn on the lights and things like that. And so Americans get frustrated when what they're paying for, they're not getting anything. One would argue whether they're getting anything now, but that's a whole separate conversation.
That's true, yeah.
But I think it's important to understand that that's because these people know their congressmen, they know their senators. Here in New Hampshire, we're only according to a UNH poll, 17% of the people know their state rep, and only 19% of the people know their state senator. When the government stops working, the only person who gets blamed is the governor, because frankly, that's the only person most people know.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that does. And so this governor, of course, is expecting to do what the last governess did, which is to springboard into a Senate seat. It's interesting to me that governors of small states seem to think that the Senate has more prestige than they do. This is obviously completely upside down, because the senators should be the servants of the states, indeed the ambassadors of the states, trying to reign in Washington, like our current ones don't.
Well, I will tell you this much. It's important to realize that New Hampshire has, according to some study, the second weakest governor in the country. So, if anybody knows, you basically have two opportunities when you're governor in New Hampshire, and that is setting a governor and council agenda and vetoing legislation. That's really all the power you have. Yeah, you get to propose a budget, but as you know, the budget the governor hasn't proposed looks nothing like the budget that's coming back to her. And so you don't have the ability to hire and fire department heads. You don't have the ability to do a lot of the things other governors get to do, like just signing off on contracts. We severely limit the power of the governor. So I can imagine why being governor in New Hampshire with a great title but not a lot of actual power would create a reason why people would want to think that the U.S. Senate is a prestigious step up.
All right, Greg, we're out of time. But thanks for coming on the show. And I'm going to quote you when I write my next article on Watchdog, because this is exactly what I needed. And thank you very much.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Everybody else stay tuned. We will be, as soon as I find the right buttons, back. Hold on.